Jen. Good afternoon, folks. Good evening, I guess. We got to start better than that. Good evening, folks. A little energy? All right, good deal. Hey, do me a favor. Raise your hand if you like to watch the Olympics. Anyone like to watch the Olympics? I love watching the Olympics. My wife and I always love it. This year was particularly amazing. I just see these athletes that are practicing day in and day out, week in and week out, month in and month out, year in and year out. All that practice for one moment to perform. One moment. It could be just 30 seconds. It could be a matter of seconds. All that practice. So we admire these Olympic athletes, love all their backstories and stuff. Then I stepped back and I thought about it. I was like, you know what? We work with leaders all the time. We work with parents. And I was like, being an Olympic athlete, that's not a bad deal. If I could practice my parenting 99.9% of the time so that I could get it right that 1%, wouldn't that be awesome? Right? We have the opposite challenge. We have to perform. We have to parent 99.9% of the time. And this is that 1% of the time where we get to practice a little bit. Okay? So I'd encourage you to take some notes. We have a note taker here for you to listen, to really engage so that you can elevate your parenting, elevate your personal effectiveness, and hopefully elevate the level to which your family thrives the remaining 99.9% of the time when you leave here today. We got a deal? All right, excellent. So my goal today is just to share some kind of simple tools that you can share with you so that you can share with your family. Ultimately, I want you to start, I don't want you to play Uncle Sam. I want you to think, hey, that's a tool, let me apply that first. I don't want you to go home, I've done this before, I know it. I'll be a message at church, or I'll read a devotional, and I'll think, man, my son can use this. Boy, if my wife just heard this. And I'm thinking, let's start with us first, right? Let's elevate our own game, and then through our example, we can demonstrate for that with our kids and show them, and then we can share that with them later on. Almost everything here we can share with your family, that's the idea. Before we get started, everyone should take their phone out, please. Take your phone out. I know you're thinking, what am I phone? All right, go to your photo gallery, please. Go to your photo gallery. People starting to get nervous? Okay. I want you to go to the most recent photo in your photo gallery, and I want you to turn to your neighbor and explain the backstory. Why did you take that photo? And let's hope nobody gets expelled. Okay? Take a minute to do that, please. Sorry about that. I appreciate you engaging in that. Anybody willing to share with me a particularly interesting backstory, or an embarrassing one if that's okay? Interesting backstory that they heard from a photo? Let's see your own photo. Don't tell us what your neighbor told us. Any good photos we have here? Come on. I'll take a picture of the order of the mom for the Hoko practice. The garter. There we go. I don't know the terms. There we go. That's all right. There we go. Those are important things about now. You're right. What else? Give me one more.
I don't want to rat him out, but sugar-induced children.
Sugar-induced children. Okay, all right, there we go. Okay. Excellent parenting technique. We'll talk about that later. Okay, good deal. Well, thanks for engaging, guys. I appreciate that. Let me just share a little bit of background about positivity, so you don't think, oh, this is like this soft topic. So back in 1999, a guy named Martin Seligman was the president of the American Psychological Association. He was enjoying kind of just working in his rose garden. He liked to garden and stuff. And he had a little 5-year-old girl at the time. And he was just kind of going around, being he was a little bit grumpy. And he was talking to his daughter, telling her to behave and stuff. And his daughter finally turned to him and said, "Daddy, if I could learn to behave better, that means you could also learn to not be grumpy, right?" And at that moment, Martin, who was the president of the American Psychological Association, had an aha. And he said, "You know what, for years we have this tremendous amount of research about how to get people to neutral. We understand all these disorders, all these problems, all these maladaptions, and we have all this research and all these practices to get people to neutral. But he goes, we know very little about what helps people thrive." And at that point, the field of positive psychology was born, which is really the focus of how do we understand our brains and how do we increase the positivity in our life and minimize the negativity. That's it. Now, bear with me. I'm going to give you a little bit of science. We're going to talk a little science here so we understand how the brain works. But this is all science-based understanding our brains. Then we're going to talk about the application of it. All right? So if you think about your brain, let me show you this slide real quick. I want to give you some context here. Okay, we're going to break this down into what we think, what we say, what we do. I just love a good outline. That's all we're talking about. Think, say, do. Right? Thoughts, words, and actions. Okay. But just as context, we think about our brain as the most complex organ known to man. It's made up of about 120 billion with a B, neurons. Right? And every one of those, and neurons is just a cell, it's a brain cell. Every one of those neurons is connected to at least 10,000 other neurons. So it looks like a DFW flight map on steroids. That's what your brain looks like. All these connections, okay? And then in between each neuron, science teachers in a room, what's that connection called? The synapse, right? So we have synaptic connections, okay? So basically it's just the gap between the neurons that allows for the growth and kind of reconnection of neurons. So with MRI imaging about, I don't know, 10, 15 years ago, we started to realize the running assumption was that over time your brain just kind of generally deteriorates and that's just life, right? But we've learned that our brain is what is called neuroplastic now, right? So that we can regenerate those connections. So instead of me getting up and going, oh my God, I got to go to speech and I'm nervous and that kind of thing, I can rewire my connections to go, wow, I have a great chance to serve a bunch of people tonight at a local Christian school. How awesome is that, right? So over time, I can create a new synaptic connection that's maybe not based in fear or concern or whatever it might be, and I can make it a positive connection. So the fact that our thoughts that fire together over time, the more we create those thoughts in our mind, are the thoughts that ultimately wire together. Then I don't have to think about it. Then when I come up here, I'm like, oh, I'm not nervous. I'm just getting to talk to people, right? So we have a chance to be able to regenerate those. So as you think about yourself, or you think about your kids, but really even just yourself now, we're a little older, most of us are older than our kids, right? I hope we're okay. So we're older than our kids, right? We have kind of patterns built up already. Some are serving us well, and others, some are not. But I don't want you to just say, oh, that's just how I am. I'm a worrier, I'm a this or that, right? My devotional the other day was awesome. It said, like, if you're a worrier, you're in essence an atheist. I thought that was really awesome, right? So it's like, if you're worrying, you're basically saying, I don't think God's in control. But the fact is, just thinking about, right, what are my thoughts, and whether they're positive or negative, that's serving me great. If they're not, what can I do to rewire them? We'll talk about just more about that in a little bit. But one really important other aspect of our human brain, our mind, is that what do you think the fundamental purpose of our brain is? Fundamental purpose. Survival, right? Exactly. It's survival, right? That's all it is. So because it's survival, many, many moons ago, if there was a saber-toothed tiger, right, running after us, we didn't want to be thinking, okay, let me do a pro and con chart to see what I should do. Should I fight or should I flight? Right? It's like, boom, that negative stimuli, I'm running. Right? So because our brain is designed for survival, the negative input feels stronger than the positive. Okay? Anyone seen an election lately? Right? So there are very few positive ads, and I'm not making any statement on either side, right? negative feel starter. Go to the movies, go to a nice little romantic comedy, but all the previews are like horrible films, right? Like they seem horrible, but that's what gets people jazzed. So because the negative feel stronger than the positive, we as humans have to be very intentional about making sure that we're taking in and giving out a disproportionate amount of positive impact. Again, I'm teeing something up. We'll talk more about that in just a little bit. So we're going to kind of go through this think, say, and do. I'm going to spend a little time on understanding what we do. We're going to do exercise. I'm just going to make a few points, and then we're going to do an activity or an exercise to illustrate everything we're doing. Okay, so be ready to kind of engage. No one's going to have to come over and do any break dancing, anything like that, but just at your tables. Okay. First, let's make a point here. Okay. Who am I now? Who am I now? I'm Batman, baby, that's right. I love Batman. Love Batman since I was a kid. Love the backstory. Everyone know Batman's backstory? His parents were killed right in front of him, right? It was horrible, right? So he had this tremendous sense of justice, right? That's what drove him. And he has all these cool gizmos, the cape and the mask and the cave and all these little hooks and ladders and all that kind of stuff. That's what Batman's about. But all those cool things around him, that's really not what drives Batman. It's really his motivation. So the fact is, our thoughts and our heart, our brain and our heart really is what matters, right? So we talk about leaders all the time and parents. I can give you all the strategies in the world of the things you can do, whether it's in business or on the home front, but none of that matters if our mind and our heart are not in the right place. And by the same token, if our mind and our heart are in the right place, we don't have to be exactly perfect. We're going to get the benefit of the doubt. We're going to get the Lord speaking through us, right? It doesn't have to be exactly right, exactly scripted. But it all starts from the inside out, right? Parenting and leadership is an inside job. We can talk about all the tactics in the world, but it's really about where's my heart? Am I here to serve my kids, to uplift them, to help them and support them, and as they get into college, schools I talked to recently, as they get a little older, right, to start coaching them, right? That's where it's at. It's all on the inside. So I want to think, as you think about what we're talking about today, think about our thoughts are really critical, and our thoughts, our mind, and our heart. I have a particular sweet spot for Batman because when I was 7 years old, it was the best Christmas I ever had. It was the Batman Christmas. I got the cape, I got the cave, I got the mask, the whole thing, man. I was playing in that cave all day long. It was awesome. And about 20 years later, I was almost 30 years old, I was 27 years old, I talked to my parents. I said, remember Mom and Dad, that Batman Christmas? That was awesome. I said, oh yeah, we remember that, for sure. I got the cape and the cave and the mask. And my mom stopped and she goes, we got you the cape and the mask. Like, you didn't have a cave. Like, we didn't afford a cave. I was like, yeah, remember the cave? I was crawling around in it all day. I was like, no, there was no cave. I said, yeah, I'm telling you there was. And then my dad turned to me, he's like, oh yeah. We got a new refrigerator that year, and it was a big box, so I guess I had a good imagination. So anyway, I could wear this all day long, but I won't. I'll put it back on my nightstand where it belongs. No, I'm just joking. No, I'm just joking. So, okay, so we're going to do a little bit of this think, say, do, just going to focus on think. So if you want to turn to page 2 in your book, it should look something like this. About managing your mindset. We know Frisco is one of the leaders in school districts in communicating with their students about growth mindset. Do we do anything at Place here just about growth mindset at all?
We do, with the kids.
Awesome, beautiful. So you can just see here just the difference between a growth and a fixed mindset. And we have down the middle your abilities, focus, achievement, challenges, feedback, and risk. And you can just see, I'm not going to read it to you from side to side. So it's really about the fixed mindset says, this is who I am. It's not changeable. And the growth mindset says, I could change anything. If I made a mistake, it doesn't define me. I learn from those mistakes. I fail forward, if you will, right? Just a big difference. So as you think about with your kids, like even we hear a lot of parents, kids going like, oh, I'm kind of like depressed. Or I'm really I'm just a worrier. We always want to make sure we're labeling emotions as a state, not a state of being, right? So helping your kids talk about, I'm feeling worried at the moment, or I'm feeling a little bit bummed right now, but that doesn't define who they are. Even if maybe they didn't make a team, so I'm feeling like I failed, right? Not you are a failure, right? It's very different. So we can help them kind of start shifting to a little bit more of a growth mindset if we would just kind of help them see the difference here, okay? It really just opens up lots of possibilities. We'll talk more about some of those possibilities in just a second. So let's talk a little bit about the broaden and build theory. Let's go to the next page of your hand. I'm going to fill in some blanks for you here. But let me talk about broaden and build first. So the broaden and build theory of positive emotions by Barbara Fredrickson basically says that positive emotions facilitate clear thinking about our options and enable us to create playful, just to be creative, playful, and curious. So positive emotions, I'm helping you fill in the blanks here, like there's like the rubric in class, right? Positive emotions facilitate clear thinking, right? Negative emotions, on the other hand, restrict our ability to see all possible solutions. Let me just explain how that might look. I want each of you to think about a time where you were feeling really overwhelmed. Maybe you just had your first child, or your kid just went to school, or work was just kind of crazy, or a time when you were really angry. Typically that has to do with a loved one, unfortunately. So they just got under your skin or something. But think about that time. We generally are not thinking at our clearest in those times. So literally what happens physiologically when we get either overwhelmed or angry, in other words, filled with negative emotion, we see fewer alternatives, right? We start to narrow. And physiologically, I should say cognitively, we see fewer options. Physiologically, our peripheral vision literally starts to go like this. Because again, it's back to survival, right? So I think negative emotions or fear or concern, I'm like very focused, right? So taking that to an extreme, and a very unfortunate extreme, if you think about people that die by suicide, right? What happens? You hear about them, they feel overwhelmed, they'll inevitably say, I didn't see another way out, and it's a horrible ending. That's just an extreme of this broaden and build theory, where they were just flooded with negative emotion, and they don't see any alternatives. Okay? There's some research in the book, I'll just share it a little bit with you, about physicians that they tested. They had a control group, and then the experimental group, they gave physicians a small bag of candy before diagnosing someone's liver disorder, right? Just a small bag of candy. Created positive, oh, thank you, they're very sweet of you, thank you very much, right? Those physicians significantly saw more alternatives and were more open to different treatment options than the people that didn't, all right? So the lesson is here, always bring your doctor a little gift, right? But that's just a human thing. So to the extent that we can create positive emotions, so think about this with your kids. What are some things, just throw out, what are some things we could do to start creating some very simple things to create some positive emotions with our kids? Words of affirmation, thank you. Look for them doing something right. Like what's the first thing? Oh, you didn't take out the trash, your room's a mess, right? It's very easy, right? It's almost kind of like we could be like the public swimming public swimming pool, which is like, no, like don't do this, right? Kind of very negative. Like, so look for them doing something well. What else? Good, thank you for that. Words of affirmation. What else can we do? Don't be shy. You guys know. Compliment them? Absolutely. We're going to talk more about that. Just compliment them. What do they do? Notice something positive. Share your feedback in real time. Here's a really important one, though. And those two are right on. In addition to that, is to respond to infrequent mistakes with curiosity and compassion. Right? So many times as a parent, we're like, oh gosh, they messed up, and we're all over them. And if it's something that's not the norm for them, seek to understand. Hey, why did that happen? Like, you never talk up in class like that, or you usually don't disrespect your teachers, or you usually find a better way to resolve problems with your friends. Why did you get in a fight this time? Lead with curiosity and compassion first. Seek to understand. You guys are probably aren't old enough, but there's a classic book called The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People by Stephen Covey. And right, one of his principles is what? Seek first to understand, right? Then to be understood. So there's just some simple things right there you can do to make sure that we're bringing positive emotion into the situation. Particularly if maybe there's some adversity that comes in and your child comes home. Okay, what else? What's good in that? What can we see that's good in that? Oh, well, maybe it'll teach me this, or maybe I'll get another opportunity to do that. Right? Help them see some things that kind of balance that out. Okay? Because as you know, you could be a teenager, something happens, and you break up with a boyfriend or girlfriend, like it's the end of the world, right? So we have to have compassion, but then gently also help them have some perspective, so they don't start narrowing in their thinking. All right. So we want to make sure that we're broadening and building their ability to see solutions. That's really the key here, okay? So let's talk about a few tools of ways that we kind of manage our mindset. Is that where we are now? Okay, I jumped ahead, sorry. So, yeah, let me, I'm going to take these one at a time real quick. But first, let me just give you a sense. Just as context here. We could go about 3 weeks without any food and still survive. We can go about 3 days without any water, all right? But only about 3 minutes or so without any oxygen. I think some people in that Avatar movie learn how to like hold their breath for like 9 minutes, something crazy, but the average person, right? But we cannot go 3 seconds without a thought. On average, we have about 30 to 50,000 thoughts a day, right? It's a lot of thoughts run through our head, right? So there's all this activity in our brains. So what do we do with these? How many of you have ever had just a negative thought? How many need to go to a little workshop on lying in public? Right? We all, come on, raise your hand. We all have negative thought, right? It happens, right? That's just a reality. So our goal is to learn how to manage it, right? So one of the things we should ask ourselves as we have a negative thought is that thought serving me? Okay. And if not, how do I start shifting my perspective so it's a more effective strategy? So I'm going to talk about each one of these just real quick here. So how many of you, raise your hand if you think you're a pretty good friend, like a pretty good advisor, coach to your friends. You don't have to be humble. Pretty good advice, some clear thinking and stuff. Not many good friends in here? Most of us think we're pretty good friends to our friends, right? How many people would speak to your friend the same way you speak to yourself? You wouldn't have many friends if you did, in most cases, right? We're much harder on ourselves. Right? Because we have these negative thoughts. Why'd you do that? I can't believe you screwed that up. Oh, Lee, man, what are you doing? Right? We could just go down in these spirals. Well, the fact is, you are the only person that's with yourself 100% of the time. Right? We are the only people, right? So we have a choice. We can either be our biggest cheerleader or our biggest critic. Right? It's really about us. So, but one perspective might be to enable us to kind of have a little bit better perspective is using a third party. In other words, if I have to go into a situation, I would talk to myself as if I'm a third party. So instead of going, oh gosh, I can't believe it, I would say, hey, Lee, you might want to think about doing this. So talk to me like I am my own best friend, right? And it sounds like a stupid little thing, but really interesting research on it sort of show that once you separate yourself a little bit and sort of almost like do a little helicopter and look down at yourself and go, hey Lee, why don't you look at this alternative instead of that alternative? We start seeing things more clearly. Right? So those are constructive conversations we can have with ourselves instead of more typical ones that will just start kind of tend to go into a negative spiral. So think about using that, just a third-party perspective, the simplest tool you can use, but a really helpful one even to share with your kids. It's really, I know it sounds goofy, like talk to yourself. But talk to yourself as if you're your best friend. All right? Another one is mental time travel. And what this does, this enables the brain to kind of simulate the healing power of time. So this is great for like particularly teenagers and stuff. Something happens, they didn't make a team, their friends don't like them, they didn't get invited to the class party, whatever it might be, right? So it's asking yourself, how is this going to affect, how does this feel to you in 1 week, 1 month, 1 year, right? And so it enables you to kind of get some perspective and say, yeah, this stinks right now, but like probably in a week, let me move forward a little bit and think, I've got this going on, homecoming's coming up, and, oh, I see, I got a lot of stuff happening, like, this may not really be that critical in a week, let alone a month or a year or 10 years from now, right? So just some mental time travel, again, enables your brain to simulate the healing power of time. We can do it for ourselves, certainly for our kids. The last one is self-reinforcement. I alluded to this already. My wife's kind of the queen of self-encouragement. If she was here with me, she'd be doing this exercise. I'm going to do it for her. But if I mentioned before, we can't depend on the world to encourage us. We love it. We're in a great school. We have that. But as just a general life skill, if we could be our biggest cheerleader, that's huge. So my wife Julie she just uses something called "Good Job, Jules." That's her nickname, Jules. So she just gives herself high fives all the time, right? Hey, good job, Jules. I made some reservations for our kids to come visit us, and blah, blah, blah. That's great. We're going to get to have a great time around Memorial Day. Good job, Jules, right? And then she kind of created some low-key ones. Even the simplest little thing. She goes in the store, hey, I picked out a really good watermelon. That's cool. She's like, good job, Jules. Right? Kind of a little low-key, right? But she's always reinforcing herself. Always, right? So, for a moment with me, please everyone stand up. I'd like you to think of something you did well today. It could be the smallest of things, all right? You got your kids on school on time. You showed up to this meeting. I know y'all got a million things to do, right? One thing that you did well today. And on the count of 3, you don't have to say Jules, but you'd be honored if you did. I'd like you to give yourself a high five and yell out your name, all right? I want you to practice this because it's really important. I'm not saying you have to go around town doing this because sometimes people say she's wacky, but you do your low-key version. But now let's practice the real deal, okay? So I want you to think in your mind what's one thing you did well today. Everyone got something? You did something well, all right? I know you did. Okay, you ready? On the count of 3. 1, 2, 3. Good job, Jules. Okay. All right, I think we have more rings, guys. All right, one more. You got to feel it, right? I'm being serious. You really have to feel like you are your biggest cheerleader. To me, just in terms of a life skill, to know that no matter what the odds are, no matter what my situation is, I'm bringing my cheerleader with me all the time. I'm lifting myself up. It's the greatest skill you can give your kids. And I think a lot of parents feel like, well, I'm my kid's greatest cheerleader. And you should be right now, but we should also be equipping them to be their own biggest cheerleader over the course of their lives when they're not under our roofs. Okay? Ready? Say it like you mean it on the count of 3. 1, 2, 3. Good job, all right, well done. Have a seat. Thank you. Okay, so just a few of those there. So let's talk a little bit about saying now. Think, say, do. So our words are very powerful. You know the old saying, sticks and stones may break my bones, but words will never hurt me? Right? Falser words have never been spoken. Right? Words matter, right? They matter to ourselves. They matter to other people. So let me ask you, I'm going to ask you a quick mental exercise, okay? At this moment, no matter what you do not, underscore do not think of a pink elephant, okay? Do not think of a pink elephant, okay? Whatever what you do not think of a pink elephant. Okay? Give it a second. How are we doing? How many people have thought of a pink elephant? All right. It's hard, right? The fact is, our brain has a hard time processing a knot. Because you're not thinking about the knot, you're thinking about that thing. How many people have ever done this before? I'm not going to eat ice cream for a month. Okay? What do you want the moment you say that, the moment you commit that? That's all you're seeing is ice cream, right? That's all you're seeing, right? So with our kids, it's very easy as a parent. Do not do this, do not do that, do not do this, right? And we don't realize just our brain is not wired, it does not. And so we get frustrated with our kids. Like, didn't you hear me? I just said you shouldn't do that. Don't touch the stove, don't do this, don't go out in the street. Right? So let's rewire that and express what we'd like them to do. So like my wife, Julie, will say, instead of the kids saying like, don't touch that, she'll say, look with your eyes. Or no, she'll say, touch with your eyes. That's right. She says, touch with your eyes. Okay? So find something you want them to do. What is the affirmative, positive behavior you want, and reinforce that. Okay? Again, we're just trying to understand how our brain works, and knowing that even sometimes our human habits are really not consistent with how our brain works. So if we understand that, we can do a little bit better. So let's do a quick exercise around this room. There's a blank piece of paper at your tables. Can everyone just take a blank piece of paper out and hold it up high? Don't take any notes on it. We're actually going to destroy it. There are a couple of extras at these tables here, but please everyone show me your piece of paper up high before we start this exercise. Up high, up high. Does everyone have one? Who needs one? Raise your hand if you need one. Now, everyone need one? Play paper here. Everyone got one? Okay, we're going. Here we go. Ready? We have a well-educated group here. I feel like Simon says, everyone put your paper down now. Okay, sorry. We have a well-educated group here, sharp people. I'm going to give you 3 simple instructions. All you have to do is follow along and we'll be in great shape. I know you'll meet my expectations, okay? So, simply fold the paper in half just like that, and tear off the upper right-hand corner. Doesn't have to be exact, just a little bit tear off the upper right-hand corner. And then second instruction, tear the paper in half again, and this time tearing off the upper left-hand corner, just a little bit. Third and final instruction, tearing the paper a third and final time, again, tearing off the upper left-hand corner. Okay, so when you're done, you got something that looks like a Pac-Man. Everyone show me up high what you got. Ed's a slow learner over here. He's still on step number 1. We got an overachiever back here. Thank you. 3 holes, 2. Hold them up high. Let me see. Got a lot of holes. 1. Any Pac-Man? Any Pac-Man. Hold them up high. If you got it. Let's see what else you got. Got some origami going on here. Hold them up high. Let me see. Oh my God, there's like nothing left of your paper. Hold up high. I like that hole. Wow. Holy cow. Yep, multiple shapes, squares and circles. Oh no. Oh my goodness. Wow. Okay. Well. Okay. Nice try, but I'm a little disappointed. You didn't meet my expectations. What can I have done differently to help you better meet my expectations? Slow down, for sure. What else? Say it again.
Demonstrate along the way.
Demonstrate along the way. What else can I have done? A better visual. Did I tell you what we were trying to achieve? Did I show you what we were trying to do? No, I didn't, right? Did I ask any questions? Was there any dialogue? No, okay. Here's the deal. If we depend on others' perceptions of our own expectations, we will be disappointed every time, right? As a result, we have to be more specific than we think we need to be when we set expectations for our kids and our colleagues and anybody else. It's not about micromanaging them. If I say, hey, Cameron, my oldest son, make sure you clean up your room. Well, his definition of cleaning up his room means all his dirty clothes got thrown under the bed, right? And it's not my definition. So thinking about, make sure you're being respectful in class, make sure you get your homework done. Well, did you mean my homework today, or should I get it all done by the end of the month, Dad? Right? We have to be more specific than we think we need to be, which requires a dialogue. Let's talk about what this means. We don't want to have to monitor you every night on your homework, so let's talk about that. Okay, that means when you come home after school or after practice, you sit down, you do your work, you show it to us or whatever, you're prepared to show it just when we get home, and then you're free to do something else. You got to be specific with them. And the more structure, the better off they have there, okay? I'm not saying like checking them every day, but giving them a structured process, okay? I remember our son, we had our son first, so it was challenging. Then we had 2 girls, and we're like, I'm glad we had the son first, because the girls are so easy, right? The son's always more challenging. So I remember one time, he had a little bit of a rough patch, and we put some very clear parameters down for him. He didn't like it, and then it was just a month later, he's like, you know what, Dad, I really needed that structure. And I realized that was my fault as a parent, that I didn't provide that structure along the way of our expectations. I just assumed that. So whether you're dealing with someone at work or certainly with your kids, we need to be more specific than we think we need to be and talk about what desirable behavior looks like. What does good look like? Okay? And have them talk about it. Let them own it. Have that be a conversation with them. You don't have to dictate it. Just like anything at work. At work, I'd rather have my boss talk to me about a project and then give me feel some ownership in it, some input. You know, we support those things that we help create. We create a sense of ownership. The same thing with the kids. They're going to own the outcome. So have those conversations with them. Okay. Let me just open up just some questions around here, around this particular topic, around being clear about expectations with your kids and helping them own kind of the process. And listen, we got 50-some odd parents here. We definitely have world-class best practices on some aspect of parenting from somebody in the room here, right? So we have people that are doing this well. Anyone had some good success with a little trick or a strategy you've done with your kids around this? Don't be shy. This is an opportunity to share with everybody, so please do. Anybody? I know it's out there. Help me out. More problems? Okay. Listen, oh, raise your hand if you had problems. We've all had the problems. We know that, right? Right, okay, yeah, for sure. Yeah, okay. So my suggestion would be is to really talk to them about it, have out of the moment too. Don't do it when like, oh, I can't believe it. I'm pissed really now because he didn't clean up his room. Then all of a sudden that comes up, right? What is that frustration? That's a negative emotion. Negative emotions are not going to enable us to see alternatives. Negative emotions are not going to enable us to lead with curiosity. Like, Cameron, why didn't you do what I thought, what you wanted to do? Well, he said, well, Dad, you said to clean up my room, so I just put the stuff under the bed. Okay, I see that. Well, then we have to have we need to be more specific about what that expectation looks like. All right. So not doing it in the moment is key, just so that you're not bringing negative emotion into the interaction, right? So it could be, we're going to schedule some time this weekend to talk about chores or talk about expectations as the school year starts and that type of thing, and have literally a conversation with them about that. I'm not saying to give up your influence and power as a parent, but I'm saying even in any negotiation, the more, what's the number one rule of a negotiation, right? Right? The one who talks last wins, right? So like, let them talk and see what's in their head. What are they thinking about? What are their assumptions they're making, right? Hear them out, and then you can kind of guide them toward the kind of appropriate behavior that you're looking for, okay? And I'm not saying every kid's going to go, oh, that sounds great, but at least they'll feel more involved in the process. Yes, please, back here, nice and loud.
Do you have any suggestions for the littler ones when they're not able to articulate what it is that they're acting out about or the reasons behind it?
Yeah.
Do you show that curiosity and try to engage?
Are they verbal yet?
She's very verbal.
Okay.
It's just sometimes
Too verbal? Okay.
she's very headstrong.
Yeah,
So sometimes when she acts out, I try to ask her, like, why do you keep saying? I don't know.
Yeah, and listen, we can think about our own thinking by the time we're about 9 years old. We can think, we have an awareness about our thought process. So I would get frustrated too. What do you mean you don't? What do you mean you don't know? You don't know why, right? So until they're 9, they literally don't know why. Now, if a teenage boy says that too, that might be the case. I don't know. But so part of that is making sure we give them appropriate grace in that. Well, let me ask you. You guys are fresher at this than I am. I would like to ask anyone with like younger headstrong. First of all, we have a lot of friends with headstrong kids. I'm like that's probably the greatest gift over the course of their life. Honestly, so it's like as a parent, don't beat that out of them, right? So it's like, okay, a little frustrating now as a parent. That's going to be a real gift for them in the future. But how do I kind of help tame that a little bit? I wouldn't even all tame it. It's just kind of direct it a little bit. So, but other folks that might be able to address this question, have maybe a headstrong kid or something. I'm just curious what you're currently doing around that. It's a good question. Right here, please, nice and loud.
I actually appreciate additional kids. I find them direction.
Okay.
If you find what they enjoy doing,
Good.
and do more of that,
Yeah.
then you get more of what you want.
Right. Okay.
And so usually when they're acting out, it's because they feel like some level of control
Okay.
has been taken away from them.
Okay.
So if you don't
Fair enough.
squash them,
Sure.
you get more and more positive.
Okay.
And so when I find that headstrong kids, they automatically think more positive because they have a higher sense of self.
Okay.
So if you just keep doing some of that, you're going to get more of that. So I have a daughter, she's always very headstrong. And I just looked at the things that were her natural ability, and I kept doing more of those things. And then I kept getting less of the things that were being problematic.
Beautiful. You're right on track. You can switch places there because you're about 5 slides ahead. That's excellent. We're going to talk about natural gifts, which is exactly right. So finding what is doing well, like there's something in it like that she's doing right and reinforcing that. And that might mean having to not give attention to the things that are frustrating you too, right? Because what is one of the best reinforcers in the world? Is attention, right? It's attention, right? I mean, Jenny, I'm sure you see this a lot in guidance, right? So any guy, the old saying in business, any PR is good PR. And from a human perspective, sometimes any attention is good attention, right? As we're younger, we don't really discriminate from that. So it's getting my parents' attention. So sometimes we have to do some kind of the negative reinforcement, which means reinforcing the positive, but not giving that attention to the negative might be one strategy for you. Okay? Thanks for sharing that. Appreciate it. Okay. So let's turn to page 6 in your guide. No, 4, I'm sorry. And so just to give you a sense, the English language contains 62% negative words, negative emotional words, and only 38% positive emotion words. Okay. Which means if we just kind of grab words out of the sky and aren't intentional about it, we're just more likely to grab negative words. So we have to be intentional about how we choose our words, all right? So let's go ahead and do this activity real quickly here. On the bottom, I just want you to put something you have to do tomorrow. Tomorrow I have to, and just fill in the blank. Work, kids, family, whatever you want to put in it. It could be from I have to work out, to I have to run payroll, to I have to do a performance review, to I have to whatever. Go shopping. Okay, give me some examples. What did you guys put? Yell it out. Bible study. What else? Dry cleaners. Doctor's appointment. One more. What's that? Wake up. There we go. Okay. Let's hope. Okay, very good. Now, I just want you to, everyone, see the number of the word have, H-A-V-E? Can everyone just put an X through that? All right, many of you know where I'm going with this. And I just want you to write the word get underneath it. G-E-T. Okay. Bible study, what were you doing? Dry cleaning. Waking up. What happens when you reframe that thing you have to do tomorrow to something you get to do? What does it start feeling like? More gratitude, opportunity, less pressure, right? No matter what it is, the most menial of tasks, you get to do that. You're up, you're alive, you've got a fully functioning body, hopefully, right? All those things, you get to do that. So when you think about your kids and they're thinking, oh, I have to go to school today, I have to go to practice, I have to study, right? Helping them reframe that. Like, you get to go to like a great private school, right? You get to have these great teachers. You get to do something that's fun, and you get to explore, what your natural gifts are in a sports setting. You get to learn about yourself and others and different topics, right? A very different frame of mind that you bring to that. But we naturally think that way. And that's why we have to be very intentional with ourselves first, I would encourage you, then with your kids. It's going to be easier to kind of point. Just start that with yourselves. So think about, when your to-do list in the morning, like, I even changed my to-do list, like, I get to, literally, all these things. Are all of them fun? Not necessarily. But I have a different perspective about each of them if I get to do them. And then even with your kids, particularly important. Okay? All right. So let's, please. And which one are you? I'm just joking. What do you do if one parent is negative and the other parent is positive, right? Well, listen, it's important for you guys to be aligned, right? But it doesn't mean we always have to have the same perspective as a parent, right? It's good to have different perspectives, but I think is hashing out those perspectives in private so that when you have a conversation with your kids, they're not getting mixed messages. That's the main thing. So there's nothing wrong. There's nothing says that the best marriages are people that think exactly the same and have the same exact perspective. There's nothing about that, right? But there is something about a child that gets a consistent message from his or her parents, right? That's really important. So I would just say, thinking through it. I mean, we've had that before. I tend to be a little bit more the disciplinarian. My wife, really with different kids, you know how it is. Like, I'm more the disciplinarian with my son. My wife's with the daughter. I don't know, it just happens that way. But we have to kind of like, all right, let's rally up and think through it, and what's the appropriate conversation to have with them. So it's okay if one's more positive, one's more negative. And I'm not trying to ask you to change anybody, but I would maybe have you think about is thinking about that, the positive, the growth of the fixed mindset is one of the spouses bringing that to the table. Because that's one thing we don't want to bring to our kids, is that kind of fixed mindset. We want our kids to feel like they could change, they could grow, they can always improve, they can learn from things, even hardships, right? And that's really kind of how we're, they'll say, God's not interested in our comfort, He's interested in our character, right? So those things we go through are things that are learning opportunities for us. And if we go into a form of adversity, knowing that like that's going to be, I might learn something from this, even if it's going to be tough, that's very different than going, oh gosh, I go through this and I'm a failure, right? So maybe talking with your spouse about the different mindsets, that'd be one thing, but not everyone's going to be the same, and that's okay. But private conversations are important before we have the public conversations. That's what I would say. Yeah. So, more about words. Gallup research shows that the most effective work groups, and I'll talk about marriages in a minute, the most effective work groups have a certain ratio of positive to negative interactions. The number of positive interactions to the number of negative interactions. Okay? What might you think that is? How many positive interactions to every one negative interaction? 5. Okay. In work groups, it's actually 3 to 1. The most effective work groups have at least 3 positive interactions to every 1 negative interaction. And remember we said before, the negative feels stronger than the positive. When our kids would say something mean to their brother or sister, we'd say, okay, we're playing it safe, we're conservative. Say 5 nice things to your sibling right now and mean it, right? Find 5 nice things about it, right? We're trying to balance that out because it's easy to just have like negative stuff going back and forth all the time, right? The same research from Gallup showed that in marriages, there's a different ratio. How many positive interactions to every negative interaction in the most effective marriages might you think there is? 2. I used to have the cynics in the crowd say, it's infinite. 2. What other guesses? 10. Okay. 3 to 1. It's actually just 5 to 1. 5 to 1 ratio. So think about that even with your spouse. Right? And again, what's the best, all these strategies and stuff we're talking about, the single best strategy you can have with your kids is to love your spouse well and encourage them well, right? And so for them to see a disproportionate amount of positive interactions to negative interactions, right? So at least 5 to 1 on the marriage front. But they're watching you every day. I mean, it's a busy time of life. Like we always would make sure we had a date, like we scheduled date nights. Even when our kids were young, we'd always have a date night, right? Like it was like every other week or something. But we just kind of figured out a way to do it. It wasn't convenient, it wasn't always easy, but we just made sure. Like I wanted, and first of all, I knew my spouse was going to be with me long after my kids were gone, and grown. But more importantly, I wanted them to see that, like, that's how a marriage is run. Like, you do spend time together. We love you. You are our world, right? And we spent a lot of time with them. I'm glad we were able to do that. In fact, when our kids went off to school and college, they were trying to get a hold of us. We'd be busy and stuff. We got a call from our baby at one point. She was like 22. She was like, by the way, were we holding you back when we were at home? I was like, no, we know how to have a life too, right? But you were our life when we were there. But even though they are your world, make sure that you're showing them how to love each other well too. So 5 to 1 on the thing. So here's the deal. As long as it's sincere and meaningful, I've done a lot of research on this. There's no research anywhere that has ever shown that you could have too many positive interactions. Right? Sky's the limit. So as long as it's sincere and meaningful, you could have 100 positive interactions to every one. That's a beautiful thing. Right? Change your mindset about what you're looking for. We see the things we're looking for. We call it the yellow car phenomenon, right? When's the last time you saw a yellow car? You might think, oh, I saw one yesterday. If you were in New York, it's no fair, you saw 1,000 yellow taxi cabs. But now that I've made you aware of yellow cars, you're going to leave here today, you're going to go down Lebanon, whatever road you're on, you're going to think, oh, wow, that's kind of weird. That guy had some connection with Detroit. Now there's all kinds of yellow cars on the road. I've just brought something from your subconscious mind to your conscious mind, so you're seeing more of it, right? You could use the same thing. Bring positive things your kids are doing, your spouse is doing, to the forefront. Look for those, and you'll see them all the time. Right? A million things. I always call my wife, jokingly, like the queen of encouragement. She would always find something someone do. We're walking down the street, and it could be a complete stranger, and she'd say, you know what? That blouse really brings out the color in your eyes. That looks beautiful on you. Our kids would just cower. Oh my God, Mom, that's humiliating. You don't even know that lady, right? So this would happen a few times, and then finally she would say, next time, don't focus on me. Look at the person I'm talking to, right? So of course, what happens? What does it feel like when we get a compliment from somebody? It feels great. People light up. And then they realize, like, oh, you just like made somebody's day, right? That's for a random stranger. So think about just in your home, what are the positive things you can see? The gifts that your kids are bringing to the table, the way they handle things, who they are, not just what they do, but who they are. Not just, oh, you did a great job, you got straight A's. Terrific. But what is it about who they are? How they're serving people, how they're picking up, how they're recovering from a form of adversity, right? Millions of those. I would really challenge you to find 10 of those a day. You just text your kid, I saw you did this, great job, whatever it might be. All right? There's no limit on that. All right. So I want to talk, on this note, strength stories are really helpful. Strength stories are asking people to think about, and this is a great activity to do with your kids. Do it as a dinner table activity. All right? Ask your kids, remember a time when you were at your very best. All right? I'll ask you this. Think of a time now that you were at your very best. Think about the details of that particular instance. All right? What were you doing? Who were you interacting with? All right? What did you accomplish? How did you feel? We're not going to do it here, but if we were to do that exercise here and have you each share a strength story with each person, all right? Number one, first of all, some people feel so humble, they feel like they're bragging. If we really got people to work through that, the person lights up. But not only that, the person you're sharing the story with also lights up. You can measure brain waves around this activity. And everybody at your table that hears that story is uplifted by someone else's account of their own strength story. Right? So it's a great opportunity, particularly if multiple kids, like have them share, like, think about a time when you're, probably if they're like 5 years old, as they get a little older, think about a time when you're at your very best. It's a great way to start having them reveal their gifted areas that you alluded to before. Right? Wow, I've noticed this. We've done this a few times over the past few months, and like every time he shares a strength story, it has something to do with resolving conflict, or it has something to do with like solving some kind of a problem. Like you start to get a sense of like where their natural gifts might be. But on a simpler note from that, I just saw recently. This is nothing original here, but I just thought it was really cute. Driving home. I forget who it was. They asked their kids, you probably seen this, Sweet Sour Monkey. Has anyone seen that before? Sweet Sour Monkey? No? Okay. I might be on the leading edge of Sweet Sour Monkey. But it's a great way to just ask your kids, on the way home, you're driving home, all right, make it a ritual. We're really big on family rituals. That's part of creating structure in your life. We always have a Sunday afternoon dinner. We always, like on the way home, we talk about this. And we always talk about our highs and lows at the dinner table, whatever the rituals might be. But Sweet Sour Monkey is a great drive home from school ritual, which is, tell me a highlight for the day. That's your sweet, right? Tell me a low point. What was kind of a bummer, disappointing, kind of a pain, maybe? And then what made you laugh, right? So it's, again, it's about creating positive emotions. So Sweet Sour Monkey. Highlight, a low point, and what made you laugh. A great little quick ritual. You can do it on the dinner table, but you know as well as I do, kids are freshest when they're coming right home from school. Like, you know, from the point they leave school and the point they get home, and that's like another eternity. They just ended another decade in their mind. Like they're gone, right? Like they're off to something else. So to the extent we can grab them right from school and it's fresh on their mind and do a ritual like that, it's a way to kind of open up the conversation. Okay. All right. Let's talk a little bit about doing here. We're going to do another exercise. Go on the back side of one of these pages or anything like that, and don't dig into your purses or your wallets at the moment. And please just draw. We're not submitting this to the art department or anything. Just draw the best of your ability. Doesn't have to be to scale. The head side of a U.S. pen. I'll give you the answer in a minute. Just draw the head side of a U.S. pen. Okay. How are we doing? Okay. You think it what? All right. Pretty sure Bart Simpson's not on the head side of a US penny, but that's a good try. That's all right. Okay. I won't let you struggle with that too much. Tell me, I'll give you the answer here, but let's just get some consensus. What's on the head of a US penny? Who? Abe Lincoln, do we agree to that? Okay, which way is Abe facing? Right or left? Because we've established the fact he's either facing right or left, that's good. What else? What else is on it? Year? 1 cent.
Something about the U.S. Department of Treasury or something.
U.S. Department of Treasury, what else? In God we trust. Liberty Christian Academy. We've got government affairs working on that. Anything else? Mint mark? Okay. It's going to be a pretty crowded penny. Okay. That's the head side of U.S. penny. Abe is facing to the left. I guess to the right if you're looking at it, depends on perspective. In God we trust, liberty, the date, and the mint mark. That's all it's on there. Okay. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 elements on the head side of a penny. Raise your hand proudly if you got all 5 elements right. Okay. We've done this with about 10,000 people, and no, only one guy was a coin collector who got it all right. So here's what research will tell us. By the time you're 30 years old, the average American, this is about 10 years old research, average American has touched a penny about 20,000 times. But I'm thinking, the digital economy, I don't know when the last time I touched a penny. So I'm thinking, well, I got to make a better argument than that. So let's just say the research said you touched it 5,000 times instead of 20,000. Well, could we agree to that? It still sounds kind of a lot to me, don't you think? What if we just said the average person in this room has touched a penny 500 times? Could we agree to that? That even kind of feels like a lot to me. I don't know. Can we get consensus in this room that everyone in this room has touched a penny at least 100 times in their life? Can we agree to that? Okay, good. We'll make an argument then. So, here's something that we all agree that we've all touched at least 100 times in our life, yet none of us can independently replicate just 5 simple elements on one side. So my question is, how many times do we look at somebody and not really see them? Our kids, their friends, our colleague, a spouse? How many times do we listen to them but not really hear them? We live in a very busy world, we're multitasking, we do all kinds of stuff, right? But what people really want is to be seen and heard. Fundamentally, last time I heard all children are people, so they have the same needs, right? They want to be seen and heard. And what's the most important thing that we could give them to be seen and heard is our what? Not even our time, I would say. Our attention. Because I recall one time I had an office in my house and I was there working one time and my youngest Lexi came in and goes, Daddy, guess what happened at school? Sure, Lexi, tell me what happened. I'm giving her my time. Tell me, I'm listening. No, Dad, listen, I got to tell you. She goes, no, I'm listening. Just tell me. She walks up and, Daddy, you listen with your eyes. She wanted my attention. She had my time, right? So I would just have you think about the people in our lives, particularly our family. Right? Do they feel seen and heard? Are we giving them our attention? I know sometimes with busy working parents, they're home. We coach executives on this all the time. They're home, but they're not really home, right? They're like, oh, well, they're checking their emails, whatever, right? So I'm telling them, listen, you're better off staying at the office an extra 15 minutes, whatever it takes, and finish that. And when you're home, you're really home. Kids are smart. You know that. They pick up on that, whether you're really attuned to them. I mean, my kids, even to this day, they'll talk to, Dad, I can tell you're busy, I'll call you later. And I'm like, I kind of want, and I was trying to do something on the computer while I'm talking, like, oh, shame on me, right? Do the phone, let alone in person, okay? So I'm just encouraging you, if you can't give them your full attention, just say, you know what, sweetie, I really want to give you my full attention. Can you give me 15 minutes, or can we talk about this in just a few minutes? You'd be better off putting it off so you can fully attend to them so they feel fully seen and heard versus trying to just oh, I could just check this off right now. Like, oh, what's she complaining about now kind of thing, right? They picked up on that. So I'd ask you to just think about that. And our phones are our biggest issue. Well, I've got a phone cover on mine. Most of you have iPhones, I'd imagine. Somebody have Sony's and Google phones. What's on the back of an iPhone? What's the symbol on the back of an iPhone? What kind of an apple? A bitten apple. The symbol of temptation. right? It's a great tool for us, but it could also suck us in. You know how many times I've been with friends at professional meetings and stuff, and I'm saying, hey, Lee, good to see you. And all of a sudden their breast pocket starts vibrating, and they're kind of like, hey, good to see you. And they're looking down like, really, dude? Like, right? How important is that? Right? I'm telling you, particularly around your kids, think about no digital, no digital device zones, dinner time where phones get put away. Just think about controlling this. It's a big temptation. I'm not talking about even just for young kids and keeping off the internet and social media. Whole other issue, right? I'm just talking about all the stuff that's on here now. I mean, I remember, if you look at a Boy Scout thing from like 20 years ago, there's a Boy Scout list of what you have to take on a camp out. It's like 25 things. Every one of those is in this device now, right? That's all you need. You're a Boy Scout, just take your phone with you, So, yes, a very useful tool, but make sure you're creating boundaries around your own use and your kids' use of the tool so that they feel like you're fully attuned. Interesting research will show that just by putting it down on the table like that, even if it's in anywhere in your field of vision, has the same distracting effect as having it just in your hand looking at it. Okay? So get it out of the way. All right? Kids see that. It's a great example it's an important example for not just about digital devices, but also about like my parents really like I am the most important person in the room right now. Right? Not that thing. Okay? I know it sounds like I'm preaching. I struggle with the same stuff, so please know that it is really important. Okay? All right. So let's talk about our natural gifts. Thank you, ma'am, over here. Your name? Yes. Rashonda, thank you for bringing that up. This is you're teeing this up for me, okay? So we want to encourage natural gifts. Right? Has anyone ever played any sport, right? Whether you're playing baseball or golf or even soccer, any sport, any piece of sports equipment has a natural sweet spot in it. It's that sweet spot that when you hit that spot, that ball goes further than you thought it could ever go. It goes just in the right direction, and you didn't even really feel like you had to swing very hard, right? That's the sweet spot. That's the same thing. We all have that natural sweet spot. That thing, those things that we do that we're just naturally gifted at, we're like, I didn't really think about it. You ask people what your natural gifts are, you go, oh, I don't know. They can be brilliant at something, but because it's a natural gift, they're like, oh, they kind of say, well, everyone can do that. I can solve those problems in no time. Well, that's not like the norm, right? So just by asking someone what their natural gifts are doesn't always get you the right answer. And that's why sharing like a strength story is a way to kind of draw that out of kids, to maybe understand the kind of experiences and interactions they're having at school, that they're able to start demonstrating their sweet spot to you. But understanding and identifying those are key. If we've asked thousands of leaders this, tell us about the best leader you've ever had. By far and away, the number one reason for people that identifying their best leader is that person that saw something in me that I didn't see myself. They saw my potential. They saw my natural gifts. And God knows if we want anybody else to see that, we want our parents to be able to not question that, but see that in us. See something else in us. I'll share just a great business quote from a guy named Marcus Buckingham, who wrote a book called First Break All the Rules. It's about leaders and coaches, but it really applies to parents. And it says, the job of a leader is not to put in what God left out, but it's to draw out what God left in. Okay? And that's our job as parents. What are those natural gifts that God has in them? How do we help draw them out? And as they're younger, we don't know what they are. So the opportunity is, how do I expose them to different experiences, different interactions, different challenges, to start revealing those things that they're naturally gifted at, so then we can start identifying those and nurturing those along the way. Okay. So on this note, well, let me just ask you this. So what are some other ways you guys think you can encourage the natural gifts in your kids? What are some of the things you guys have done to kind of, hey, I found a kid really gifted at this, and we kind of did this. So, anyone have examples of that, about what you did to encourage a natural gift for your kid?
Engage with them.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
Do it with them.
Yeah.
Beautiful. Love it. Even if you don't like it. I had one father who would take his young daughter to musicals. He wasn't a big musical fan, but he found she liked it. She'd take a music. All of a sudden, boom, she started blossoming. Right here. Thank you.
My son's a runner, so they can run with him. So I rolled out of bed in the morning and ran a 5K with him.
Nice.
And he was so happy.
That's right. Look at that. Yeah.
Like he was such a dream.
your pain for that, however long it took you to run that 5K, is magnified 100-fold by, that's a lifelong memory for him. Lifelong. And not to mention, kind of nurture that. Well done. Nice. Any other examples? Right here.